Welcome to my studio. My name is Sean Wallis. I am a professional painter and have been for the last decade or so. I want to go through some of the things that you need to know in order to begin oil painting. Sometimes when you go to an art supply store or you go to a website, you're so overwhelmed with things that you don't really know where to start. You don't know which paints to look at, you don't know which brushes to get. And really, it's kind of difficult to get your feet wet. So I just wanted to offer a video that will show you just kind of the basics of what I use. Not to say that's the only thing to use, but it will get you a start. And so, welcome to my studio. Alright, so let's start with brushes. There are a lot of different options in brushes, and really the only way to find out what you like is to try a bunch of them. But I will show you some of the ones that I use, and hopefully that will give you an idea of a starting point. So really there are two types of brushes. There are the hog bristle or the sable hair, and you can get synthetic of either as well. But sable hair is like this one here. This is a sable flat, and it's a size 6. And sable hair is very soft. It almost feels like a makeup brush. And that is for fine detail or smoother strokes that aren't going to show as much of the paint. And then there are the hog bristle brushes. This one is a 10, and it's also a flat, but it's a very thicker, more coarse brush. Now the difference between the two is this one's going to be for finer detail or smoother paintings. A lot of portrait artists use sable hair because then you don't get the chunky buildup that's going to reflect light on your final piece through the brushes. It creates a smoother stroke. This is a brush largely used by landscape painters, but there are no real rules. There are many portrait painters who use hog bristle, many landscape painters who use sable. But a hog bristle will just hold more paint and puts it on thicker, and you can scrub with it, and you can do a lot of things with a hog bristle brush that you can't do with a sable. So mostly I use hog bristle. I do have quite a few sables just for detail work, or if I want to try something new. Mostly what I use are flats. Now there are flats, filberts, rounds, and brights. Those are your types of brushes. And I don't have an example of all of them. This is a filbert. You can see it's got kind of a rounded edge on it, which makes it really nice for edges because it kind of just tapers. My smaller brushes here are rounds. That brings it to a really fine tip and helps you get a lot of detail. This here is a filbert. This is one of my favorite brushes. It's a sable hair filbert. Really long bristles, which make it really nice to do fine lines with. Most of these are flats. This is a flat. Flats have long bristles, and then they're called flats because they're flat on top. Now a bright, I don't actually own any brights, but a bright's like a flat, but you cut it off about there, and it just creates a stiffer type of bristle because it's shorter. I like flats because they're very universal. You can do almost anything with a flat that you can do with the other brushes, and so I like to use the flats while I paint. Sizes. I generally buy my sizes in even numbers, and I don't know if that's just because I like even numbers, but I go from 2, and then I get 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12 is as big as I go. This is a 12 right here. I've seen other people go a lot bigger, but this is as big as I ever need. My favorite manufacturers really have more to do with price than anything else. My most expensive brush is a Robert Simmons, this one right here, and it holds just a ton of paint. It's got a lot of bristles in here. Very soft, very workable bristles. Really nice to paint with. My brush that I manufacture that I paint with the most, however, though, is Rosemary & Co. They're out of England, so they're a little harder to get a hold of. You've got to find a dealer here in the United States. My last person that I bought from, I bought their last remaining brushes. But for the price, these I think are the best brushes on the market. They are about half the price of this, and I think equal quality. The Hog Bristle hold a ton of paint, and the Sable are just really smooth and fun to paint with. However, if you're beginning, but you want to begin with a nice brush that's really affordable, go down to Hobby Lobby and get the Master Touch bristle brushes. They don't last as long as the Rosemary or the Robert Simmons, but they do hold a lot of paint just like them. They have very nice workable brushes, and they are very inexpensive. If you're just a beginner, I would suggest that. If you're going to be doing a lot of painting, I would suggest going for the Robert Simmons just because they're going to last longer. I also use a palette knife a lot. If you're interested in palette knife painting, I think you'll want to subscribe to my channel because I do that a lot. This is a Chason 832. It's an Italian brand. I like how wide it is. I like the balance of it. Let's move on to paints. So this is my palette. Funny enough, this is a computer table from Staples. But onto the paints. This is my entire palette. These are all the paints that I ever use. Whenever I teach classes, I have students ask, which paints should I put out? What colors should I put out? And my answer is always the same, all of them. You never really know what you're going to need to mix until you actually are faced with having to mix it. And it's really arduous to have to put new paint out every time you want to mix a new color. So here's the main manufacturers that I use. I use Gamblin. And I like these bigger tubes with Gamblin. You save quite a bit of money if you go for the larger tube. I use Lafranc. I use Sennelier. I think that's how you say it. Theirs is a very good, very oily paint, which is nice because it preserves well. Georgian and Rembrandt. And this is the only tube of Rembrandt I use. It's the most expensive paint that I have. And I use it simply because it's this brilliant red, and they do it better than anyone else. And red is an important color with how I paint. But yeah, so all of these colors are one of these 5 manufacturers. So there are really 2 options that you have in paints, and that is student grade or professional grade. All of these are professional grade, which basically means there's more pigment and their color is stronger. The student grade has less pigment. It almost seems watered down a little bit once you've used these. I would suggest, though, if you are a beginner, to start with the student grade. It's a lot less money. For example, if this tube of paint costs $10, in student grade form, it would probably cost more like $4. So it is quite a big price break, more than half usually. So I would suggest going with student grade first, and then once you have a handle on what you like to do, what you want to do, and are ready to take that next step, then you can jump up to the professional grade paint. Anytime you add something to oil paint, to thin it, to alter it at all that isn't oil, you're going to shorten the shelf life of that oil paint. And you've all seen the old paintings that are cracking. I've seen paintings by artists that are still alive that are doing the same thing. And it's because they use a lot of additives when they paint. And I always try to stick to oil to thin. If I want to go really thin, I use odorless paint thinner. And odorless paint thinner you can get from Hobby Lobby. You can order it online. This is just the Hobby Lobby version because it comes in a nice big jug. Odorless paint thinner. So if I want to go really thin, say I'm tinting my canvas or something like that, or just doing a quick wash, that's what I'll use to thin it. But other than that, I stick to either walnut oil, which will stay workable for a very long time. So if you want your paint to stay soft and kind of slippery, then walnut oil is what you want to use. Other than that, I use resin oil. And this is resin oil made by Weber. And it is resin oil medium 789. And it's an oil, but it's thicker. And it doesn't necessarily dry your paint, but it makes it sticky and tacky. So if you like painting over the top of paint without it mixing, this is probably a good medium to use since it is still an oil and isn't going to shorten the shelf life of your oil paint. So there's a lot of different types of easels out there. I would suggest, even if you're just beginning, to go get one. Well, I hope that this has been an educational video for you. I hope that it's answered any questions that you have about materials to start oil painting. If you have any questions, please comment. I would love to either reply to your comment or make another video if I need to. So please, any questions are welcome. So follow my channel. I will be uploading instructional videos, time-lapse videos, maybe even doing some online workshops that focus on aspects of landscape painting. It's been fun. I hope I answered all of your questions. I hope that if I haven't, you guys will contact me. Thanks.